When you've already travelled to the other side of the world and your favourite place to visit is just another 2 hours away, you get on a plane and a train and head north to Hokkaido for Christmas and New Year's. Thanks to the time of year and the haphazard way this trip came out together, the timeline may be fuzzy, but we are going to do a lap around Hokkaido, taking us from the Hohei-kan tunnel to Noboribetsu, travel through the valleys and marshes around Kushiro, to the northern coast of the Abashiri, get stuck on a train in Nagaro, eat ramen in Asahikawa, see fish in Otaru, and then otherwise chill in the capital Sapporo, experiencing a different culture and pace of life in Japan's most northerly prefecture. Because it would feel wrong to travel to Japan and not take a long distance journey on the Shinkansen, I flew to Tokyo, meeting up with my travel companion Jims in his second home of Akihabara. The Tokyo visit was brief, as we were on our way at 6 AM the next day to get the first day's Hokkaido Shinkansen service north, the Hayabusa 1. The fastest train in Japan travels the entire length of the Hokkaido Shinkansen, passing through northern Tokyo and the cities of Kanto region, then along the wide valleys through Fukushima, Sendai, Morioka and Aomori. The view varied from distant snow-capped mountains to just beyond the window, as there are patches of very dense fog, especially in the first part of the journey. At Aomori, we officially start the Hokkaido Shinkansen and soon drop below the sea for the longest undersea rail tunnel in the world, the Hohei-kan tunnel. At 53.8 kilometers long, it is 3.4 kilometers longer than the Channel Tunnel, though the latter has a longer undersea section, and it runs 240 meters below sea level, making it the second deepest transport tunnel in the world. We run through at reduced speed, but it doesn't take long to appear on the other side in Hokkaido, and not long at all until the terminus at Shin Hakodate. Hopefully, by the end of the next decade, this train will continue all the way to Sapporo, but for now we must change trains here. As nice as the limited express train is, it is somewhat of a downgrade in comfort and speed, though travelling around volcanoes and along the coast is a welcome change all the same. It is notable, though, that while a bit chilly, it was not very snowy here, and the industrial areas around Mururan were a bit bleak. To distract from the bleak surroundings, I embraced today's ekiben, which was pork cutlet, washed down with a highball. A lesson I learned from the last trip was to embrace the ekiben life, and this will continue over the next few days. 1,014 kilometers and 7 hours 51 minutes after leaving Tokyo, we arrived in Noboribetsu Station, a small though modern station that is the gateway for our first stop of the trip. A 20-minute bus ride from the fishing village takes us right up into the mountains to Noboribetsu onsen, and the first thing that hits us is the geyser right next to the bus stop and our hotel. Sited on top of a very geologically active valley, Noboribetsu Onsen is what we would call a spa town. Hotels and onsens take in the ready supply of hot water that flows directly through the town from the several hot springs for their famous baths. But before we would try the baths, we took a walk as the sun set into the Hell Valley. Noboribetsu is effectively the southern entrance to Shikotsu Toya National Park, which covers several volcanoes and lakes to the north of the town. Unfortunately, winter snow means that several trails and roads are blocked, so we can only practically walk around the immediate area. However, this happens to include the most famous landmark of the park, Jigokudai-ni, or Hell's Valley. Thousands of years of eruptions have created this otherworldly landscape, where hydrogen sulfide gas and steam vent to the surface. Despite the relatively low altitude, conditions here are so harsh that alpine plants grow. The hellish appearance of the valley, of course, gave rise to legends of Oni who live here. Originally, the Oni terrorized the people of the town, but the gods didn't like that, so the Oni were forced to protect Noboribetsu and the bats, so despite appearances, they are nominally friendly now. The Oni's club has become a bit of a symbol of the town, and you can see statues of them and of demons all over the place, especially around bats or the local geyser. Shrines and monuments related to the local legends can also be found, including some interesting posts that were spotted in the valley.
Somebody left a screw on top of their head. It looked like a screw. It's probably a monument, I think, right?
It probably is a monument. Again, probably all with the whole legends of the demons and all that. That's going on. But yeah, no, this whole town smells like sulfur. It's like Iceland, basically.
I feel like we can get used to it, but initially it's like, ooh.
It's a bit odd.
Yeah.
but also illustrating that they have literally just built the town on top of a volcano.
Yeah.
Because, well, what else would you do? Yeah, water.
That's just sulfury water.
Yeah, basically. And it literally runs down the valley, down this stream, into the onsen and the baths down there. As nighttime fell over the valley, we returned to the land of humans to embrace more local culture. Bathing is a big deal in Japan, with practically every neighbourhood having a public bath. So a valley of natural hot water with all the mineral goodness from volcanic rock is a magnet for hoteliers, backkeepers and of course tourists. Now for Westerners, the idea of getting naked and hopping into a bath with a bunch of strangers does not sound appealing at all, but I strongly advise you to screw your inhibitions and just get in. You're really missing out. Our hotel included access to the Daiichi Takimoto-kan, the largest onsen in Hokkaido, and it is amazing. Founded in 1890, the onsen now contains indoor and outdoor baths, as well as a large hotel, restaurants, shops, amusements and a swimming pool. The various baths contain 5 different types of spring water, so you can really tailor the experience for what you're looking for, or go into every one because you can. The highlights are definitely the outdoor baths, where in the morning I was relaxing as the sun came up surrounded by freshly laid snow. And the main indoor baths looking out over the valley is of course a highlight. And yes, it is so good that not only did I go in that evening that we arrived, but I returned again early the next morning for a second round. Helpfully, our hotel provided suitable clothing for visiting an onsen, which of course I got into the spirit of. After our evening bath, we wandered down the main street of the town for dinner. Despite the air temperature being just under freezing, we did not feel the cold at all after the bath. If anything, the fresh air was nice to cool down. Not that dinner in a stone oven pizzeria helped cooling down, but freshly made local beer helped all the same. So that was my Christmas dinner for 2025, a tradition I could really get behind. The next morning we walked around the valley in the daylight, which was still spectacular. I really wanted an excuse to come back again at some other time of year, not only to see more of the park itself, but also to see it in bloom, and of course to visit the onsen again. Some more urban sights we saw this morning included this musical bin truck, which apparently is a thing in Japan, and a family of deer who seemed right at home in the centre of the town. Unfortunately though, we had to carry on, as our next journey to Kushiro would take a bit longer than we planned, thanks to the railway between Obihiro and Kushiro being washed out by snowfall, so yeah, unfortunately we had to leave a few hours early. We continued along the coast, changing trains at Chitose, from which we entered several valleys as we made our way across the mountains to Obihiro. Up here in the mountains, we found the snow we expected in Hokkaido at this time of year, and it really started to feel isolated and remote at parts. But the train ploughed on and I got to enjoy today's ekiben of pork, chicken, noodles and rice, and whatever that yellow thing was. I don't have a picture, but I think I had a highball as well. At Obihiro, we returned to civilization and we had to change onto a rail replacement bus, and while this is never good, I do have to credit the JHR Hokkaido staff for making this as seamless a process as possible, which is not always the case in these situations. So a bit later than planned, we arrived in Kushiro, which was always just going to be a stopover on our journey, but we had worked up an appetite, so embraced local tradition in eating at a yakiniku restaurant. While found all over Japan, these are particularly popular in Hokkaido, especially serving gendis-kan, a type of lamb dish. The principle is that you order raw prepared ingredients and then grill the suit at the table. We of course tried a variety of meats, including fresh shrimp. Yeah, it snowed quite a lot even while we were just inside. Like, a lot of the depth of this snow happened in like the last half an hour. Quite a lot, which also means we can't see where the ice is anymore, so even though we only have to go 2 blocks that way back to the hotel, we're gonna die. Death is guaranteed. Well, you know, if we walk in the middle of the road it's not that bad. But that feels like cheating. We were up at the dawn the next day, as for the second time of this trip, we were getting the first train of the day. Most of the day would be on trains, completing most of our loop of Hokkaido, as we travelled from Kushiro to Abashiri, and finishing in Asahikawa. I hope this video adds to the evidence that this journey is actually possible, as both JR and Google's search engines don't give this as an option. Though admittedly, if you actually wanted to travel between Kushiro and Asahikawa, going via Sapporo is likely much more efficient. But this journey was not about efficiency, but to see the countryside. The local train from Kushiro to Abashiri is a single car DMU, and we only had one other passenger with us until we got to the Pacific coast. Yet, it wasn't as bad as I thought spending nearly 4 hours on this train would be. The sights of Kushiro Shitsugen National Park provided the backdrop to breakfast, featuring wide marshes interrupted by forests. Here we found that the main reason for delays on this line is due to the local wildlife, with slowing up for herds of deer crossing, not uncommon. In one station we got this amusing standoff with a stubborn heron, which despite the efforts of the driver on the whistle, refused to get off the line. Eventually did get the message and we continued on. After the national park, we stopped at several farming towns, Hokkaido being the breadbasket of Japan, and then through the mountains to the Pacific coast. These inland areas had already gotten heavy snowfall, and even by the end of December, showing that the stereotypes of snowed-in Hokkaido are no joke, and a lot of effort is spent up here keeping the towns and houses from being completely buried. We dropped down into wide open fields and from Shari ran along the north coast to Abashiri. As it was now a civilized time in the morning, the train got a bit fuller, and just before 10 AM we arrived in Abashiri. Our early start meant we had a few hours here to look around the port town. Being on the coast, it was a balmy -3 degrees. We walked along the main street which follows the Abashiri River, which flows from the nearby Abashiri Lake, bringing down Abashiri drift ice into the Abashiri port, whose entrance is marked by Boshi-iwa, a large rock that is the first thing here that is not called Abashiri. Down by the port we found the Ryu-Hyo Glass Museum, which is less museum as we would think of it and more showroom of glass crafts, with staff who will enthusiastically show off and explain how they use local and recycled materials to make these products on site. They also have a cafe, and it is worth the short walk from the town centre just to have a look or to sort out some Christmas presents. We took a bus up the nearby hill, which in the summer features some nice parks and has 3 museums. The Prison Museum, as this is what the Japanese mainly used Abashiri for after colonising Hokkaido, and to this day there is still a major prison in the town, the Drift Ice Museum, and the Museum of Northern Peoples. This is not just about the people of Hokkaido, but of the northern latitudes in general, with artifacts from around the world, to show commonality and subtle differences between these peoples. It's not a huge museum, but would be interesting context for tomorrow's destination. The small size actually worked to our advantage, as we were able to get the return bus down the mountain to the train station, and after a brief snack we were on our way again on the nice limited express train to Asahikawa. Today's ekiben was straightforward sushi, but our journey was about to be less straightforward. The first half was actually quite nice as we travelled along the river valleys to Itami and Igaru, the setting sun providing some nice lighting to the snow-covered landscape. After dark, we arrived in Engaru, and this is where things went sideways. And now we wait, as we have been for the last 20 minutes or so, thanks to the blizzard that's come in ahead of us. So now we're stuck at Igaru. I think that's long enough to count it as having stayed here. Well, this is always a risk you take when you travel in winter. Oh well. Still, a local train went ahead of us into the depths of the blizzard, and maybe they're using them as a noble sacrifice. We were stuck here for 2 hours as snow got cleared, and while it's never good, I once again have to credit JR Hokkaido for how they handle these situations, as it is notable that after this there was no major delays on the entire network for the remainder of our trip in Japan. That's the entire network, not just what we saw of it. If not obvious, these are conditions that would cause meltdowns in most of Europe, but here, maybe 1-2 days of some disruption that honestly over here happens on a daily basis anyway. So later than intended, we arrived in Asahikawa, which thankfully had not closed up shop yet. The main shopping streets were seasonally decorated, which is great to see, and it's what we needed to get us back on track, and miso ramen will always help lift spirits. Like Kushiro, Asahikawa was really just a stopover, though we did quite like this city. One reason was that for the first time on this trip, we were reunited with an old favourite, 17 Ice. So somehow we're like a week into this trip and we've now finally gotten ourselves a 17 ice update.
Yeah, I mean, we have been in Hokkaido most of the time, so maybe that's a reduction reason.
I don't know, we didn't even see a lot in Tokyo either. This all looks very familiar. Nothing. Gato chocolate, that might be something I haven't seen
Gato
before.
chocolate might be new.
Yeah. Otherwise, I think I've seen the rest of these.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is somewhat annoying because as much as I want to try gato chocolate, I know that's really nice. When eventually the gimbal will go down to it.
Yeah.
We have also accidentally discovered in the ramen shop what all the blue stuff is. Apparently it's soda. But we have no idea what that means in reality.
So yeah, this one is soda.
Yeah. Anyway, I feel the need to embrace the memes in ice cream. So, I'm pretty sure my phone will tell me it's like -8 outside. But we have ice cream. And this new gato thing. Really nice.
Chocolate.
Gato chocolate. Very nice. Caramel.
Caramel swirl. Also pretty solid.
There we go. Overall, a great success in 17 ice. After our ice cream, we carried on to Sapporo, which would be our base for the remainder of our time in Hokkaido. As we headed south, it was interesting to see how the snowfall rapidly dropped off as we got near Sapporo. However, on this morning, we were just changing trains to Sapporo to carry on to Shiraoi, which is only 10 minutes from Noboribetsu station. Thus, as we passed through Chitose, this completes the loop we have done in the last 2 and a bit days. And even in that short time, we were now finding the lack of snow here quite strange. We were at Shiraoi as this is where the National Ainu Museum and Park is. Some history is needed to explain the significance of this place. Before the 19th century, Hokkaido was populated mostly by the Ainu, but in this century, efforts to colonize Hokkaido by the Japanese were accelerated, which not only rapidly modernized the island, but resulted in the near annihilation of Ainu culture, as their language traditions were essentially outlawed, and they were forcibly assimilated with Wajin culture. Even the word Ainu had become a derogatory term, and with the Ainu changing their names to be more Japanese, after many generations, many people still don't realize they are descendants of Ainu people. However, thanks to great efforts since the fall of Imperial Japan, Ainu were officially recognized as an ethnic group by the Japanese government in 2008. Ainu people have been able to reclaim their rightful name, and this national center was created to preserve their history. And I think it is really important to visitors to Hokkaido to learn about this culture that could have been completely lost. The next day we were again striking out from Sapporo to the nearby port town of Otaru, but on the way we got to sample a local soft drink that seemed very familiar to me. Product placement told me I needed to drink this, so I did. Mainly because I want to know, is it just iron brew but Japanese with Italian dressings on it for some reason, because that made it sound fancy back in the day. It's like, oh, we named it after Naples. Where's Naples? I don't know, it sounds foreign.
Interesting.
Yeah? So I don't know what you think of it. I can describe it as just being, it's iron brew, but in Japan.
To me, it's kind of like Sprite with a hint of orange flavor.
So that's iron brew.
Okay. Yeah, I don't like particularly love it, but like I feel like every now and then it would sound really good, and then you want it.
Yeah.
So
I think it's good.
Yeah, I'd take it. I wouldn't turn it down.
Yes. When Hokkaido and the city of Sapporo were industrializing, Otaru was the city's gateway to the world, with its port being connected to Sapporo by canal and railway, with the old railway now forming a linear park through the town. Like other port towns in Japan, it has an interesting architectural style with heavy foreign influence, and the town has made an effort to preserve the style of certain areas, most notably around the canal and docks. On the headland to the north of the town, not only is there a lighthouse, but Otaru Aquarium, which is a nice detour from the norm for us to learn about the marine life of Hokkaido and beyond, with one of their signature attractions being the Penguin Walk, where a group of penguins waddle around to the amusement of the gathered crowds. At this time of year they look right at home in the snow. On top of the interesting fish, of great interest to us was to find our second 17 ice in as many days. Okay, we found a second one in Hokkaido, in the Otaru Aquarium. it does have the orange thing you like again. I'm not sure what I'll go because I did like the gato.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have the Zuki thing I do like.
Hokkaido milk.
Ooh, nice.
I do not have it again.
Oh, blueberry cheesecake. I'm curious. Now I need to know what that is. I do recommend the blueberry cheesecake ice cream, as I do recommend heading up the cable car at Mount Tengu. From here we get a view over the town of Otaru and the sea. Many people were here to enjoy the view, the snow, or perhaps an après-ski. The mountain has an interesting name, as it seems to be named by migrants to Hokkaido from the south, who may have thought it resembled another Mount Tengu. For whatever the reason, the name linked the mountain to the Tengu, red, long-nosed creatures of Japanese mythology, so probably the shrine here has an extensive collection of Tengu from around Japan. Also here is the Otaru Ski Museum. Skiing is an import into Japan by a Swiss immigrant, and it rapidly caught on with many ski resorts throughout the mountainous island chain. Hokkaido has a ready supply of mountains and snow, and thus a rich history in winter sports. Those keeping track of time since Christmas Day in Noboribetsu may be noticing we are rapidly closing in on New Year's Day. This is the Japanese equivalent of what Christmas is in Europe, and thus we were caught in a bit of a lurch over the next few days in Sapporo. Not that it wasn't enjoyable and we knew what we were doing when we set out, but the tempo drops off here as we took a relaxed approach to the end of the trip. So don't try too hard to keep track of the timeline, this will mainly be about some of the interesting things we saw in our few days in Sapporo. The main central park in the city is Odori Park, which is 1.5 kilometers long with various lawns, gardens and fountains, though December is not a great showcase of the park as the trees are pretty bare and we were too early for the snow festival, where the park is filled with various snow sculptures.
I guess the rainbow is 0, so that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm not really sure how that scale is working because they seem to have the minuses at the top.
What?
Though that, if it's meant to be a thermometer scale.
Well, no, if the rainbow is 0, it's 2. The red is like the mercury. The blue is empty.
Yeah.
So if the rainbow is 0, it being 2 makes sense. Because then it's 2 spots up.
2 floors up. Yeah.
Whatever. Nikai.
Yeah, that's what happens when you turn your building into a thermometer.
Yeah.
Well, it also doesn't seem that well fitted to work with negative numbers.
Well, if you go below 0, then it's just below the...
Yeah, you just go down, but you don't have as much scope to go down.
Look, they need to go down to more than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12C, negative 12C.
I mean, it is Sapporo. At the eastern end of the park is the Sapporo Tower, which if you think looks a lot like the Tokyo Tower, you are right, as it was designed by the same architect. It has been a feature of the Sapporo skyline since 1957, and while the 147-metre tower was the tallest in Sapporo for most of its history, in recent years more high-rises in the city have dwarfed it. There are suggestions of replacing it with a much taller tower, but for now it bookends this end of Odori Park. Not far from Odori Park is another tower that has been dwarfed by its surroundings. The Sapporo Clock Tower was built in 1878 and is all that remains of the former Sapporo Agricultural College. The Japanese government hired several American experts to establish the modern agricultural industry in Hokkaido, hence this and several buildings from the time are in American style, though this is one of the few that remain in central Sapporo. Heading south of Odori Park you find several shopping streets. Now covered shopping streets are not unusual in the area, the sort of pleasant, common-sense approach to pedestrianised streets that isn't a thing in enough places. However, the stuffed bears might be more of a Sapporo thing. Maybe this is a bit of Okotskh culture that hasn't died out yet. One of the smaller covered streets is the Ramen Alley. Now a bit of an Instagrammable tourist trap. It is neat and the food is quite renowned. However, we messed up as this was by far our best chance to eat here. But we weren't that hungry, so we said we'd come back later. Yeah, we never saw it as quiet as this again, so we always ended up eating at other places nearby, which were also nice, but we didn't get to tick this box. Sapporo takes the covered street to its logical conclusion with its extensive network of underground streets and shopping centres. You can walk all the way from Sapporo Station to Susukino, a distance of 1.8 kilometres, entirely underground. With the long cold and snowy winters, it's not hard to see how this caught on, though it did take a while, as it was only the Winter Olympics that served as the catalyst for building this underground city. This gets added to the section on strange things you can find underground in Sapporo. Birds.
Here's the bird.
Hear the bird. Look at him. Hear the bird.
blue and yellow.
A variety of birds. The underground streets, of course, then lead you to Susukino, the lively centre of Sapporo's nightlife, with pretty much activities for all tastes. And I mean that very literally.
And the whole thing's just on a giant page.
In case you're...
Cat nurse.
Cat nurse?
Yeah, right there in the middle.
Oh, that's just fun. So, yeah, in case you're wondering what Susukino is actually for.
I think this is just off Susukino, but yeah, same idea.
No, I'm pretty sure this was here first, and then everything else kind of grew around it.
Okay.
That's my impression anyway, so... Yeah. No, everything is as it appears. Which, you know, is kind of useful, in a way.
Yeah.
So, you come here for protest bars, maid cafes, and ramen. Yeah, that's why you come here.
Yeah.
So yes, whether you want a department store, all-you-can-drink bar, or a prostitute, Susukino will have all that you're looking for. Near Susukino, we came across this memorial, and I always find little insights of local history like this interesting. This is to the composer Tadashi Yanada, who was born here in Sapporo. He wrote several songs that were used in Japanese schools, most famously Donguri Koro Koro, so many Japanese people will know his work, even if they don't know the man or where he came from. And completing a clockwise loop around Odori Park back to the main station, I passed the former Hokkaido government office. Built in 1888, this was very much a symbol of the modernization that would come to Hokkaido. This building housed a newly created Hokkaido government which replaced the Hokkaido Development Commission. This was the predecessor to the modern prefectural assembly, which was formed when Hokkaido was given equal status as a prefecture of Japan in 1947. The building was destroyed by fire once and restored twice, with the most recent 6-year-long restoration having just finished. Continuing the trend in 19th century buildings, in Nakajima Park there is Hohei-kan. Through its 145-year history, it has been a hotel, event venue and even a military camp. It was originally built by the Hokkaido Development Commission to house foreign engineers who were working for the commission, and as a hotel it hosted Emperor Meiji in 1881, the first of 3 emperors who would stay here. After the Second World War, the US Army used it as accommodation, after which they returned it to the city of Sapporo, who moved the building from its original location near Odori Park to its current location here in Nakajima Park. Nakajima Park was also a nice visit, though the frozen ponds were no good for boating today. The snow does lend itself to sledding though, the alternative purpose for this small hill when it isn't being used for astronomy.
That's definitely like a Sapporo specific example.
Yes, where you have to explicitly say don't rest your skis against a platform barrier as the example of objects that you would lean against a barrier.
Mm-hmm.
As we now come to New Year's Eve, the shrines in the city had their decorations up and were making preparations for their busiest day of the year. This was especially the case at Hokkaido Shrine. Another product of Japanese colonization, on the orders of Emperor Meiji, 3 gods were enshrined here, who were the gods of nation building, agriculture, medicine and land. Some early explorers of Hokkaido and Emperor Meiji himself were also later enshrined. As the name suggests, it is one of the most significant shrines in Sapporo and will be very popular tomorrow, hence we visited on New Year's Eve and not New Year's Day. And after passing through the festival celebrations, in the nearby park we were able to pay homage to our own god of 17 ice. You think this is like the staple Hokkaido selection of 17 ice then?
Not necessarily.
But just a second time we've got it.
Hokkaido milk one.
Yeah. There's that matcha one.
I've seen it before.
I've seen it before. I don't think that... I know why it's just caught my eye this time. Raisin butter crunch. Oh, I think I've had that before. That's good.
This one?
What above it?
I don't know.
That's cooking. That's just cooking cream. Which they tend to have 2 of those for some reason. It's like people really like that. Ghetto chocolate's back, as well as the orange thing and the soda ice thing you like. Nice.
That's that soda. That one's cider. The soda ones are on there.
Right. Well, what do you call that? Soda sherbet.
Oh, why it says cider right there?
To confuse you.
It definitely says soda froto.
I don't know.
Soda float is what that one is.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. So.
I don't know. They just want to confuse you, or they realise that in English we use cider to describe something very different, and it's like, that might be confusing, so we'll just call it what it is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, icing.
More expensive here too.
Is it?
Pretty sure.
Yeah, it's like 50 yen more than Asahikawa. Damn, you're getting screwed for getting in the park. Oh well. They know, they got us. Okay, as usual, you've gone for your usual orange one.
Yeah.
I went for the tiramisu cone, mainly for the reason of I had exactly 200 yen on my Suica card, and this was 200 yen.
I had 150 in coins evenly,
so this was very much a budget
yeah.
chosen decision, budget-led decision really for today's 17 ice selection. But that's not bad. I like the tiramisu one. I'm sure I've had this before, and the orange ice is like a staple of yours, so that's good. So yeah, come to the park, see the shrine, enjoy the festival, have 17 ice. It's all good. It's all good. New Year's Day is actually very quiet in Japan. Most people are at home with their families, so once they have made their trip to the local shrine or whatever other tradition they have on that morning, there's not a whole lot else going on. It was nearly surreal at times to wander around the city with pretty much the only other people out here being other tourists, kind of wondering what to do with themselves. Unsurprisingly, any place that was open was doing decent business, including a few traders at the usually much busier Nijo market. I'm surprised that any of the fish markets open today, and it looks like any sort of restaurant that is open today has a nice crowd outside it, because there's like 3. Including this place though. Good job. Of course, part of the reason there was not many people about was that it was not that nice a day to be out, but as usual I was out there all the same. I did find the one shrine in the city that was not mobbed, so I did get to visit a shrine on New Year's Day. Admittedly without any of the festivities, but it was nice all the same. Yeah. Fortunately I can't zoom in because I've got gloved hands on, but there's a fox just running straight across the park there, taking advantage of the fact that no one's about. Yep, look at him go. Here he goes again. Yeah, this is like probably the quietest day of the year you'll find any Japanese city. Which, I mean, Sapporo's not an incredibly quiet city because it's not that small a city, but it's just empty and the weather's not, well, the weather's helping or hindering, depends on what perspective you go from. Yeah, not really a time to be outside. Oh look, umbrella. Very useful. Yeah, it's been a bit of a weird one the last few days. I don't know how it's come across on the video. It probably looks like I didn't do much. You know what? Because I didn't do much the last few days here in Sapporo. I'd say the real last full day we actually did anything was when we went to Otaru, and even that was pretty leisurely, to be honest. Probably could have, in total of what I've actually done in Sapporo, could have gotten away with like 2 nights here. Right? But I don't know. I think when I looked at it, the flights were still crazy right before New Year's anyway, in terms of getting back, so I think that partially drove the decision, to be honest. You know, it is what it is this time of year. It's like visiting a European city on Christmas week. You know, it's got that exact same feeling to it here in Japan, which, yeah, in hindsight, maybe should have right before this just bit the bullet and gone back to Seoul for another day or 2. That would have been quite nice. Speaking of quite nice, hey, neat river, getting freshly doused in snow. Yeah, so I don't know how sensible this trip plan's been, but it's not been unpleasant, of course. So yeah, it's kind of worked out, and yeah, so now I'm just on a random wander until the one thing we do actually have planned to do today events, which I'm somewhat looking forward to, and will appear in the video probably straight after this, unless I see some more interesting stuff. But I know I just got restless, so I had to just go outside and see some things. Not the things I actually planned to see, because I realised I ran out of time to see the things I wanted to see. But, oh well, yeah, that's crazy. Spend 3 days in the city basically doing nothing and still don't see everything you want to see, but whatever. Weather was not cooperating. It's almost like it's December or something. Oh no, it's actually January now. Cool. I should figure out how I'm getting out of here. Because I'm somewhat crazy, I ended up walking all the way back to Sapporo Station, following the Sosei River that makes its way through central Sapporo. One stop on the train later, and we were at the Sapporo Beer Museum, which was actually open on New Year's Day. Originally a sugar beet factory, the Sapporo Brewery Company took over the factory and brewed beer here for many years. Beer brewing was one of the projects of the Hokkaido Development Commission, as they worked out that Hokkaido was suited for beer production. Being able to grow the raw ingredients, they had a rapidly expanding city in Sapporo and a ready supply of ice, which was very important before refrigeration. While beer took a while to catch on with the locals, as it was much more expensive than sake originally, the German-style beer that was produced was well received by the significant foreign community in Sapporo. The company went from success to success and is now one of the largest beer companies in Japan, with breweries as far away as Canada. The brewery here closed in 1965 and the current museum opened in 1987. The historic buildings were quite a sight on this winter night, and what was a better sight was dinner, which was all-you-can-eat yakiniku served by robots, with humans behind an open bar, filled with Sapporo Brewery products of course. I'm sure I had one of every Sapporo and Noribetsu beer on offer because, it would have been rude not to. And that rounded off our stay in Sapporo, with Jim's flying down to Kobe to continue his winter holiday in Japan, and I returned to Seoul for an extended layover back to London. On the whole, these 10 days in Hokkaido was a return to familiarity after our last visit in Japan, yet a different flavour. If anything, it does illustrate how you can get a different but worthwhile experiences in all seasons in Japan, and while I'm not keen on getting melted in the height of summer, I am thinking an autumn trip is now on the cards. I wouldn't be against coming back to Hokkaido at another time of year, as I think it would be a new experience all over again. As usual, Japan does not disappoint, and while I don't have a fully formed plan in my head for a return, there definitely will be another trip coming up. Though probably not in 2026, as I have a sick race car, and sick race cars are the fastest way to burn money. So the next one of these vids will probably be in Europe, and hopefully we don't have to wait a year.